you know, if Johann Sebastian Bach were alive today, he would probably be performing in a group similar to Chicago. You know, if Beethoven was alive today, he would probably be writing for those musical forms. We're trying to do things originally, uniquely, and honestly. If you've studied our records, the sounds of the records, the way the records have been recorded, the way the group has been rehearsed, the way they have written for the records, and the way they have written for the performances, which are two different aspects of writing, it's very symphonic.
I first took music lessons when I was about 9 years old. My father had played trumpet in various dance bands around Chicago, and I played clarinet all the way through high school. When I started out at DePaul University, I had the idea that I was going to teach school and went into playing orchestral clarinet. I was offered an assistant professorship in music at DePaul and passed it up to stay with the group. I thought there were more creative things to be said with the seven of us than with teaching and symphonic playing at that time.
Can't take it no more. People hating, hurting their brothers they don't understand. Oh, they can't understand. Better end soon, my friend. You better end soon, my friend. Yeah, yeah. Just think about it.
People that view bands or see bands think that we're some kind of superhuman being, and that we don't do the same things that regular people do, eat meals the same way, or just breathe and enjoy life the way they do. You know, I think they put us on a different plane, and it's weird reacting to the way they treat you, because you want to be treated the way normal people are.
A lot of different things, you know. Let everybody individually write and play the way he wants to, and yet still be able to play it all together, you know. That musically is, I think, what we're doing, you know.
Your jazz roots are phenomenal. Yet you said earlier that you had worked out of Chicago playing when you first got together in Chicago.
Well, all seven of us started about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago together, but it was an entirely different attitude towards playing music. The tune that I dug that was set up next,
the Moby Grape
that I mentioned to you, we were a copy band at the time. You know, we did a lot of other people's material. The big hang-up there was in Chicago at the time, you really didn't work unless you played somebody else's material.
I see.
You know, and it was a big hang-up.
In other words, you had to play mostly the thing that was familiar with people already.
Right. On the stations, you know, the top 40 stations.
Like we did stuff like Tijuana Brass medleys.
Oh, really?
You know, Temptation medley. Yeah, all, you know, all that's, we did everything. We did actually
Satin Down.
And then we started doing original material, and it was a small group of people that dug it in Chicago. But all the while we were in contact with Jim Guercio.
I first became involved with the fellows in Chicago in college. See, I was a classical musician. We went to school together at DePaul University. I had gone through about 2 years of college with the horn section in Chicago. And when I decided to get involved in pop music because the academic environment was stifling, all these fellows were performing in different groups or in different units around the city of Chicago. And we were able to put them together, and they worked under the name of The Big Thing for about a year in Chicago. And they played all the lounges and all the bars and all the dances, and they played terrible jobs just to keep together.
Well, you never really saw the true owners. That's pretty diplomatic. But they were run by people, which I guess you would call the outfit. This is common knowledge in Chicago. People that came into the nightclubs were not there primarily just to have a good time and have a couple of drinks, but to get like sort of drunk and look for a fight in a place. And more oftentimes than not, in some of the places where we worked, in the middle of a tune, we'd find ourselves in the midst of a fight. This kind of atmosphere, and while you're playing, it doesn't breed for any creativity, but a mess of paranoia and always running to the back room to get out of the way of a flying chair or something like that. It was, to sum it up, it was hard to play, and you couldn't really experiment. And then they wanted you to be in a suit for the most part, and play and dance and sing and tell jokes and stuff like that. And we saw it a different way, and we knew we had to get out.
And when the time was right, we brought them to Los Angeles, and they sat for almost a year, about 9 months, in this house in Hollywood here. And they didn't leave that house. There was 8-hour sessions every day. It was a good year's work of creativity. We had 6 albums completely finished. So it took about 1 year before they even considered themselves an original act. We're getting more sounds out of 7 individuals and out of 7 instruments than Leonard Bernstein does every Sunday with 80. pop music business is a business that happens to sell art occasionally, but it is certainly not a business where everything, all the product is art. I think it is a corrupt business. I think it is archaic and antiquated, and it is probably the most exceptionally dishonest industry. I mean, maybe I haven't been involved in munitions or anything, but I know that the record business is quite dishonest because of the nature of the investment. You see, a very small investment of a few $100s or a few $1,000s can return hundreds of thousands of times its initial investment if a product is successful. Chicago last year played over 200 one-nighters, which means they visited in excess of 200 cities in a 365-day year. They will probably do the same this year.
We've found, like, we've really tried, to write on the road, and it's just, even if you had the time, your head is just such a weird place, you feel so temporary.
Next, we'll look at Chicago on the road, from San Francisco to Europe to Dallas.
It's a little hard on the wives and kids, and three of us are married. Fortunately, we've been able to recently take our families along on some of the shorter trips, which is great. One time when we were in San Francisco, Danny Serafin and myself, Danny's the drummer, we both took our families along with us. It's really great to take the families along and the wives and have them experience and see a lot of the places that we've already played and do a lot of the things that we've already done, to share that with them.
Where'd that duck go?
It's sort of hard on the wives, though, but they don't really say too much about it. My wife, Jackie's really great that way. She's very understanding.
The first time I held a man, I almost killed myself. Matter of fact, I still do.
The road and home life are two different things. They're two separate ideas. The road living is totally a different way of life.
Somebody get out, one of you get out there so you know they're coming. Come on. You gotta go back. Wait a minute. Harry? The most exciting thing about contemporary music is that we've been able to communicate with large segments of not just this population, but all through the world. Chicago has been phenomenally successful outside of the United States. They've been accepted all through the continent, in France and Germany, Switzerland, and Denmark, and Holland, and Sweden, and England, phenomenally. They've been accepted much more readily than they have here. Yet at the same time, we have toured more extensively here. We've played more cities here. We've played every borough, every state, every major city, over 200,000-300,000 population in the country. They might not be the most perceptive human beings in terms of what they see and how they see it, but they do experience more of the common denominator of this country and of every country because of travel, just because of the nature of travel.
You learn a lot about people by traveling, the way they think about you. And on this trip, we were in Dallas, Texas, and usually we rent cars and drive straight through from the airport to the motel where we're staying. On our way to the motel in Dallas, we drove past the spot where President Kennedy was assassinated, and we always get a kick out of seeing the places that are historical sites. Pete Cetera, our bass guitarist, takes a lot of snapshots, as a lot of the other fellas do, and It's odd. I never really feel comfortable or at home in the South. A lot of the people sort of feel uncomfortable about pop musicians, and sometimes they make me feel sort of weird and uncomfortable.
I think the parents are just as terrified for many reasons, and probably rightfully so. They're terrified of their children, you know, idolizing these type of performers. They're terrified of the drug culture which these performers seem to represent. They're terrified of the value system which they seem to personify.
My drums last night. Did you loosen the skins? Yeah, they're kind of loose. Okay. You may be able to get them on stage. I don't know. Could you set up that other stand for me?
One of the reasons pop music is so meaningful is because the people that are, you know, the performers of these groups, they're more in tune with the nation as a whole. They might be only in a city or a college for one day and one performance, but when you are on a stage, you know instantly what they want to be told, what they want to hear, and what they want to experience.
What can I say, you know, Chicago, when they leave the Windy City, it must become a boy.
Kids today, because of being exposed to a lot of music, they will not stand for a second-rate group. They will not have the wool pulled over their eyes by a group that more or less is just shucking, what we call shucking, or just goofing around on stage. They know good music today, and they definitely don't want to see groups that don't know what they're doing.
Peter was friendly. Peter out that last couple tunes, man. It was 25 points really fast.
Was it? I couldn't realize that.
Yeah.
So I might have played all the tempos. 25.
Yeah. I was going. Couldn't see him. I think it was too fast.
Yeah, it was, man.
It was been too fast every night that we've ever played.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like hey, listen. Introduction was Speed City, man. Introduction, I know. I mean, I couldn't even have a
Sometimes people accuse us of being cold and not friendly, but it's just the fact that we're really shy, you know. Way back in the old days, like when I was in high school or nightclubs, there's always chicks that are going to pick up on, you know, guys in the band, and this is just an extension of that. They are the female counterpart of this pop culture, and it exists in everyday life too. There are chicks that only want to marry doctors, chicks that only want to marry lawyers, and chicks that are gunning for anybody with money.
I think there's a number of young ladies that pride themselves with being associated with entertainers, and just because they feel that they want to marry a pop star, I don't think it's any more unique than a career girl wanting to marry a doctor or a lawyer.
What are you looking for, Janet? Come on in. Janet, did you see this?
That picture.
Come over here and grab a spot on the floor. Wait, you know where are you still sitting in that pool?
Nice to see you.
It was a good set, Pete. It was really good.
What you been doing? Sold everything, quit everything?
Here.
Here we have.
Right on here? They were right on the inside.
No, come on. Is there any more glasses, Dan? Hey, Dan, is there any more glasses? Wally, is there any more glasses?
You do meet a lot of people that are interested in just wanting to meet you, to talk to you about your music, but there's always the few, the male and the female groupies that are around just for their own private reasons, you know, just to touch somebody that's in the pop music scene, you know, and that's when you realize what their goals are.
I gotta go home and clean.
It's easy to figure them out pretty quickly. It sort of turns you off. You know? But it's short and simple. A groupie is a chick that wants to know somebody successful in a band. And
status thing?
It's a status symbol, more or less.
Let's put it this way. This was before we recorded an album. And we went to New York. And we used to go, you know, because everybody wanted to, you know, meet some chicks, you know, have a nice little drink and all this stuff. So, like, we'd go into these nightclubs or something, you know, and, like, all these groupie chicks, you know, they'd come up, oh, you got a lot of hair. Who are you? Oh, yeah, I'm with CTA. They'd split, you know, you wouldn't even see them for the rest of the night. And now, you know, now we're the CTA, we have an album out, you know, now it's a different story, you know. We go into places, we don't even want to meet chicks, half the time the chicks are like, oh, you know, all they want is a free ride. You know, that's all a groupie is. They've been here for years, man. They really have, you know. Groupies have been around ever since there was musicians.